And one of the reasons that Netflix got the toehold it did is that Blockbuster saw it. I mean, they knew that eventually people would be, using the internet for movies, and they wouldn't be block the stores as frequently. But they were going, no, we have $6 billion a year flowing through our stores, and we're supposed to take our very best engineers and put them on this web business that we're going to do $5 million. That's crazy. And they didn't put their A team on it for years and years and years. And by the time they finally realized, wow, this is going to take us down if we don't respond, it was almost too late.
That's the beauty of startups, right? I mean, for us, I've learned this probably for the last, 15, 16 years. I've been doing this, spinning out businesses out of our existing, because our businesses get to a certain point and they get a little bit complacent. I mean, we strive to be leaders of what we do in these businesses we're in. And when you get to 50, 60 million in sales, they in our industry, those are very big numbers, right? When you're talking about mom and pops you're competing with across the country. And so our team gets a little bit complacent, and I think it's very common. And so we have a new idea that comes up, and it could be a division within our business, but as a division, I don't believe they press hard enough, fast enough. And so when we spin them out and they become their own entities, we've seen that entity with that small, passionate leader and that team of 5 or 6 to start, right, really get engaged as partners in the business and motivated to kick ass, right? And so again, I'm confident that as startups, you have way more creativity that goes on and less fear of the failure. And I believe that, that's what I'm going to continue to do. I'm going to continue to spin out these little businesses because it's so much fun to watch these partners just kick ass and think differently, Yeah,
it's a funny thing you said when you said, and less fear of failure. But I would argue the reason why it works to spin them out is there's more fear of failure.
Well, that's true. That's true too. It's the mix.
When you're in the mothership, it's like, if it doesn't work, whatever, they'll just put me on some other project. When you go, no, man, you're on your own here. If you screw this up, you're out of business. There's nothing that lights a fire under your ass, which realizing that everything's at stake unless you get this right.
Sure, but they don't have like the executive team, breathing down their necks, right? Yeah. They've got a lot more freedom. They've got risk, like you're saying, but they've got more freedom and they feel like they own it more, right? Compared to being maybe a VP in the business with not a lot of not as much upside and not as much downside. So I think, like I said, it's so much fun to watch. So mentoring these startups for you, it's got to be a blast, right? I know I do some of this, and I know you're doing this. It's such a blast to mentor these startups when you can give them, share experiences with them, make them think differently, right? Can you tell us about that?
I'm glad that you're actually framing it that way, because, mentoring for me is not entirely altruistic. There's a lot in it for me too. Because Netflix was my 6th startup. So I've been doing it for 40, going almost 40 years. And so when Netflix when I left Netflix, I didn't want to hang it up of being an entrepreneur. But at the same time, I was now almost 45. And so I was going, I'm not sure I want to do another 7x24 startup of my own again. Yeah. But, I need that fix. I can't go cold turkey on it. And so really for me, mentoring was my methadone, my way to get that rush of being part of a startup, but without having to be, 7x24 anymore.
Sure.
At Netflix was kind of interesting, by 2003, Netflix had now gone public. We now had finally cracked the code of how to run the DVD by mail business in a way that actually made money. We had this ability to hire unbelievably good people. And it kind of was different for me then. One of the things I've kind of realized is that what I really love, is early stage stuff. I love that problem solving mode. I love the fact there's always 100 things on fire, and the skill is to pick the 2 or 3 and focus on them relentlessly. It's more with less. And so by 2003, even though I still loved that company, loved Netflix, I didn't necessarily enjoy the things I was doing anymore.
Sure.
And so realizing, and more importantly, I wasn't very good at it. I mean, I'm not a big company guy. I'm a small company guy. And so leaving Netflix was my chance to actually do the thing that I love doing. And it turned out that the model that worked for me was mentoring. Because the thing that I've always loved, even from the very beginning, was that feeling where you're sitting around the table with the really smart people solving these really interesting puzzles. Mm-hmm. And now as a mentor, I get to do that. I get to come in and sit down with these really smart people and help them solve really interesting puzzles, with the huge benefit that I get to go home at 5 o'clock. And they have to stay up all night trying to solve the problem. So it's been remarkable, and it drags. I'm 61, and so this drags me into new things. It keeps me current, not just on technology, which is fun in and of itself, but how are companies marketing themselves? How are they communicating with customers? How are these new tools being used? Mm-hmm. And I just love getting a chance to work with smart young people.
Well, you've got this, you in my space, and different than your space, but we've got these shared experiences, right? That we've got in our past, that we can pull them out anytime and say, hey, well, let me tell you about an experience I've had, and you can make your own decision. But here's an experience I had, right? And in telling those experiences, you're going to give some lesson that they're going to take something from it, right? You're not pressured that they have to think your way. You're not pressured that they have to make the same decision you even made, right? But it's so much fun when they can think about the good or the bad experience you went through, and they make their own decision. And that's you've got such a vast amount of cool experiences that if you share those experiences with people in the moment, man, they're going to take and get so much value out of it. And I find that on a daily basis that when I'm mentoring, that's what I get, right? I get this great feeling that, man, they learned something from that, good or bad, and they went on their own. They made the decision that was right or wrong that'll affect their future, hopefully positively, right? So it's really fun when we get to be our age, and you can look back and say, let me think about an experience. Let me tell you about an experience I had, right? And I used to think when I was mentoring, when I looked for mentorship in my 20s and 30s, and we didn't call it mentorship. I was like, there's somebody successful. I say, hey, man, I want to sponge off you. You've got a nice car, a nice house, and I want to sponge off you, right? And they'd say, that didn't feel too good to them, but if they like me, they say, yeah, I can share. I can talk to you about business or whatever. And so often I would expect them to tell me what the hell to do, right? And eventually, it took me into my probably mid-30s, late 30s before I realized that mentorship isn't telling anybody what to do. It's 100% sharing experiences. And if you're telling people what to do, you're not. That's not right, because you actually have some liability with that too, right? If they do what you tell them and it's wrong, what are they going to feel like, and what do you feel like when it happens, right? So again, mentorship is it's easy in my opinion. If you put work into it, it's and you have fun with it. Maybe it's not easy, but it can be very easy if you love doing it. And so I can't imagine the value you bring to the table for anybody you share experiences with. It's got to be awesome. So thanks for doing that.
Well, what's really cool about doing mentorship, or more importantly, working with lots and lots of companies, is it lets you put things into perspective. Mm-hmm. I mentioned that over 40 years, I did 7 companies. Okay. And, a bunch of them were pretty successful, but you never really know which of the things you did worked or which ones were wrong but succeeded in spite of themselves. How much, and you begin to realize how much of it's luck. And as you begin to get out and you begin to work with lots of companies, you begin to see the patterns emerging.
Sure.
So the really interesting thing for me over the last 15 years of working with, by now, probably hundreds of early stage entrepreneurs, and hearing countless pitches as kind of an angel investor, is that you begin to see what the common denominators are for early stage success.
Sure.
It's not something you can say, here's what to do. These are approaches which are shared by a lot of successful companies. And then you can look back at your own career and go, oh, I can see how this thing I did totally inadvertently, totally without knowing what I was doing, was that the right thing at the right time in the right place?
Yeah.
And it's been fantastic to kind of have this chance to look back and go, not just, wow, I did some great smart things, but more importantly, to look back, especially at Netflix, and go, oh my God, how lucky were we?
Yeah, yeah.
All these things broke right for us that had they gone a different direction, it would be a very different story right now.